Bonjour everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video in which we're going to talk about what I like to call the buff problem. I had this video idea when I saw for the 8.5 preview that Wargaming was literally buffing every single old tank we have in the game. The T-54E1, the Vickers, Centurion, Conqueror, and not only tech trees, because if we take a look at the premiums, it's the exact same. T-26E4, Chrysler K, T-54E2, etc, etc. And even if for some tanks, I can definitely get behind the buff. For example, the Chrysler K getting a better penetration, or even the KV5 getting more armor. There is a subtle problem that maybe will occur in the future based on those buffs. When you take a look at the KV5, for example, you know that it's weak simply because everyone is aware of its weak spots, and that tank is filled with weak spots. We have the two cupolas at the front, we have the two cupolas on the top of the turret, we also have the side cheeks here and here. So let's say that this tank, which is supposed to be in its essence one of the strongest tanks in the game based on its armor, is actually just a big block of cheese that you can get through by poking holes pretty much everywhere. And on this kind of tank, it seems quite logical for Wargaming to buff them, right? But back in the days, when the KV5 was released, was it really that bad? No, it was just a regular tank, and actually a good one, a one that you could get behind with and have a lot of fun playing, because you were not facing completely overpowered and broken tanks. And we could say the exact same from the IS-6. I remember back in the days when I first played, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, this tank was definitely among the greatest, and you had quite a lot of fun playing it. Nowadays, even if after several buffs, Wargaming is keep making the mistake of releasing this thing, you see less and less of those, because it's definitely becoming not interesting anymore. And this is where the problem, the buff problem, occurs. You have plenty of tanks that were good back in the days in their old meta, but in the new and current meta, they are quite useless. And in order to prevent them from being useless, Wargaming kept buffing them again and again. But the problem is, like that, it's going to be an endless cycle. You get a new tank, it's good in its beta, it starts to get bad stats or at least be less played because better tanks are getting released. You decide to buff it, it becomes better in the net meta, etc, etc. And it's a full cycle. And the problem is, we need to ask ourselves how we can break this cycle. And to be fair, there are pretty simple things to do in order to break it, but Wargaming will probably never try to implement them. First of all, Wargaming needs to reduce the number of OP tanks they are releasing. And I take here the example of the Kruppstier Waffenträger simply because this tank was, when it was first tested, just an average tank. Nothing really good about it, neither nothing really bad. And Wargaming decided to put it back in test, and after they literally buffed the gun so hard that this thing become an awesome tank. And this is the main problem with Wargaming. They want to sell the product because that's how the company is surviving, right? So they know if they release a premium that is bad, they're not going to make enough sales. If they don't make enough sales, they are getting in debt, etc, etc. But you don't necessarily need Wargaming to implement completely broken tanks, or at least really good tanks, in order to sell them. Just either increase the number of average tanks you are selling to get a complete pail of different tanks and therefore more sales, or try maybe one broken tank, but from time to time, not every single month, like one every 6 months or something like this. And even if Wargaming is taking the good path by, for example, for Halloween, releasing a tank that is quite average, I would say that I wouldn't be surprised that they try something else. If you remember correctly, the Steyr WT first had 2 shells in the magazine, and now it climbed up to 3 shells for the exact same magazine reload time. So this thing, when it will be released, will have a 660 alpha damage burst. Yeah, at tier 7, everybody's gonna play it because it's completely broken, and the tank on top of that has a fully traversable turret. But what I see as a problem could be seen by some as a solution. For example, the people that only own the KV5 as their main premium and that didn't use it for years because it's taking dust because of its inability to adapt to the new meta. Then in the new update, when you'll get a really strong KV5 that doesn't have any more of those cupolas as weak spots, you are probably going to play it again. Same for the gun of the KV5. It lacked a lot of penetration, and nowadays Wargaming intend to buff it once again. So in the end, you're going to get yourself some tanks back in the days that were good, and you're going to make them shine again. But, as once again, it's going to last for maybe 10 updates before we get something utterly broken or new mechanisms that are completely outdating the old one. I'm thinking about auto reloaders that completely destroyed the purpose of auto loader tanks. I'm thinking about tanks that are combining too many good factors, such as the 60 TP that has the armor plus the turret, even if the tank is not broken by itself. All those things make me think that we are in an endless cycle and that wargaming will not be able to do anything about it. They need to release new tanks, and in order to make the tank still relevant and to make the game, not the tank, to make the game relevant, but also to let the player base not getting bored, they need to do those changes on the tech trees, because it's always fun to take an old tank that wargaming buffed and that made it not broken but actually really good, like it's going to be the case with the KV5 TVPVTU or the VK4502A in the next update, and see people rushing it and playing it again and again and again. But this is not a solution, a viable solution in my opinion. If wargaming allow themselves to slow down on the OP premiums and just stick to regular tech trees that are neither broken or bad, then we could have an healthy matchmaking. But there are probably other solutions that I did not see. And if you do, please tell me in the comments so I can maybe do another video, or maybe doing a video about your solutions could be actually a nice thing to do. But beside that, even if I see it as a problem, we are also kind of cool about it, because obviously being able to play again the tanks that we have taking dusts in the garage is always a good news. But there is no stop. So now let's focus a little bit on the KV5 itself, because obviously when it will be released in the next update, because Wargaming will definitely buff the tank to sell it back in order to increase their sales, and this is what they do when they don't want to release a tank because they don't have any test currently. I would say that the KV5 is going to be a great tank for two reasons. The first, all the statistics about the tank are going to be good. You have an incredible armor. To be fair, the mobility compared to your weight, like the power weight ratio, is actually really good. And on top of that, the gun is going to get a penetration and a reload buff. So everything is perfect, right? But oh, and one last thing also, the critic coefficient of the KV5 is one of the highest in the game. Usually when you do like 3k damage with it and you're using a credit booster, you're gonna get around 100,000 credits or so, which makes it a ridiculous tank. But there is also the fact that this thing is one of the first tank Wargaming implemented. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first tier 8 ever premium that Wargaming put into the game. So yeah, I can tell you that this is an old tank. And have it in your garage is always an honor. And it's also a cheap tank, because it had been on sale for like 6 years. And when Wargaming is putting it back, it's for 5k, 7k, or 7k gold, or biggest offers, but in which you get premium time, gold, etc. So in the end, it makes it an extremely relevant tank to get in your garage and to be able to play. So hopefully you enjoy, guys, and tell me in the comments if you agree or not with my presentation. And hopefully I'm going to see you soon for a new video pretty soon. See ya.